In a city where heroes swing high and teenage angst swings harder, one podcast dares to ask, what if they just said sorry? This is Super Sorry.
Welcome to Super Sorry, the podcast where we use superhero stories to explore apologies, accountability, and all the problems that could have been solved with one honest conversation.
We're Todd and Amber, Marvel fans, creative collaborators, and two people who watch the MCU and immediately start asking questions like, okay, but who should apologize here?
Today, we're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming, a movie with high-tech suits, academic decathlons, and one teenager making increasingly questionable decisions because what he really wants is approval from his mentor.
Which honestly feels pretty relatable. Most of us haven't fought criminals with alien weapons, but we've all done something dumb because we wanted someone to notice us. And that brings us to today's question. How much responsibility should adults around them take when a young person screws up?
Well, I think that adults should take on quite a bit of responsibility. Peter spends most of this movie trying to live up to expectations that nobody clearly explains to him. He keeps making poor choices, so maybe it's the adults that need to figure out a better way to communicate.
Well, I disagree. Peter might not be an adult, but he's, 14, 15 years old. He's old enough to know that chasing armed criminals around New York is probably a bad idea.
Okay, that's fair. But every adult in Peter's life keeps giving him mixed messages. Tony recruits him for this giant superhero airport fight and then tells him to stay on the sidelines. And that, I think, is confusing.
Well, being confused isn't the same thing as being accountable. Peter makes a lot of choices in this movie, and not all of them are Tony Stark's fault.
Okay, fair. But this movie is full of adults who are not taking responsibility when I think they could. We've got Tony, we've got Happy, we've got Aunt May. Everybody assumes someone else will deal with the problem. And then Peter ends up stuck in the middle. He keeps trying to prove himself and then keeps making mistakes that create very real consequences for all the people around him.
So today we're looking at who's taking responsibility, who's avoiding it, whether accountability changes when you're still learning how to be a hero, and let's figure out whether Homecoming is really a story about proving yourself or learning when to ask for help.
We're not experts, just fans with feelings. And if we miss something or get it wrong,
we are
super sorry.
All right, listeners, where are you landing on this one? Are you with me that Peter has to own the consequences of his decisions? Or are you siding with Amber that the adults around him deserve more of the blame?
Spider-Man Homecoming begins with Peter Parker fresh off helping the Avengers in Captain America Civil War, and he is itching to prove himself. He is so desperate to show the Avengers that he's ready to join them, so he's searching for bad guys to take on.
The problem is that wanting to be a hero and being ready aren't the same thing. Peter keeps ignoring instructions, taking bigger risks, and putting himself in situations he can't handle because he thinks he has something to prove.
Right, but let's not pretend he's operating in a vacuum. Tony Stark recruits a 15-year-old into a superhero conflict, and he gives him a suit loaded with advanced technology, and then leaves Happy Hogan in charge of communication? That doesn't make sense. That is not a recipe for success.
That's probably fair there, but Peter still makes his own choices. He skips school, he lies to his friends, he chases dangerous criminals without backup. Every time someone tells him to slow down, he finds a reason not to.
It feels like almost everyone in Homecoming thinks they're doing the right thing. Peter thinks he's helping. Tony thinks he's teaching. Even the bad guy, Toombs, thinks he's doing the right thing or has justified it all to himself somehow.
But good intentions don't eliminate accountability, which means it's time for our apology audit, where we look at who owns their mistakes, who avoids responsibility, and who makes things worse.
So we've gone through Spider-Man Homecoming and picked our top examples of apologies or accountability gone well, or those that go very, very wrong.
Each of us brought a super sorry fire pick, our choice for the strongest apology, and a sorry, not sorry, misfire pick, the apology, excuse, or non-apology that completely misses the mark.
So let's see who's taking responsibility and who's expecting someone else to clean up the mess.
And my fire pick, my number one on the board. And maybe it's a little bit of a deep cut for you or a lot of people, but this one really jumped off the page, or the screen, I should say, for me. And it's not the main character, Peter, or even some of the obvious picks, but it's Peter's bully, Flash. I thought he had the best apology in the whole movie. And what I'm referring to is when Flash is in his car, Amber's shaking her head at me. On his date, and he goes into his discussion about their meal from previously getting in the car, and Amber's still shaking her head. And it's, I'm sorry about dinner, but I know when Branzino's was fresh, and that was not fresh. Why were you shaking your head, Amber? I'm going to pause on my rant for your comment.
Because this is my misfire. This is the worst apology, but I'm going to let you say why you think it's the best, and then I will bring my rebuttal.
I mean, to me, like, this is a genuine, in the moment, he's actually apologizing. It's an actual, real apology for something that happened. It's something they both agree is, something that should be apologized for. And he's very clear about what he's apologizing for. There's a lot of ones for Peter where he's not really apologizing. He's kind of deflecting. And for me, just him bringing this up, and the director choosing to put this in there, I don't know, it jumped out at me. And like I said, it's not, an obvious choice for a fire, probably based on your information. But for me, it was, because it felt genuine. It felt like a real sorry. And it really, left an impression on me. Also kind of piqued my interest. I mean, I'm not really familiar with all the fish varieties out there, and I look it up, kind of see what it was. And it's a European sea bass. Apparently, I guess around this time period when the movie was made, or maybe it's still going on, a kind of very trendy, healthy white fish to be eating. And it was something that was more pricey fish, so something maybe you would go on a fancy date and eat. Do you want to go into your reason that's a misfire now? She's like waiting for me to get done. Okay.
Oh, to me, it's like an apology, in air quotes, wrapped in arrogance. Instead of taking responsibility, Flash is like making him sound superior in this moment. Like, sorry about dinner, but I know when the Branzino's fresh, and that was not fresh. Okay. It's just like, it shows his immaturity and sort of his lack of self-awareness. And to me, it's the opposite of what an apology should do, which is repair trust or show care. And instead, he's just sort of being an asshole.
There's no care being shown, and he wanted her to have the best meal possible, and it wasn't fresh, and he knows when it's fresh. That's not care. There's so much care in that.
I just don't agree. I mean, I think the director or the writers put this in as a funny throwaway line. I don't think it was meant to be a true heartfelt apology. I mean, he is sorry, I think, but he's more sorry to himself that dinner didn't go well. I'm not sure he was so sorry to his date.
I disagree. I think it's the number one on the board.
You totally throw me off now, because I was getting ready to share my fire apology, and now you made me share my misfire apology.
Was that your number one misfire?
Yes.
Oh wow. Well, you're going to have to go to your backup one then. So since I don't know what a fire apology is, why don't you educate me on what one should sound like?
So to me, the best apology was when Peter says to Aunt May, "I'm sorry I made you worry." And this comes after Peter tried to fight Vulture on his own and then had his suit taken away by Iron Man. And it's the all is lost moment. For me, this apology had like real weight, because it's not just a surface level sorry. Not only is he feeling sorry for what he's done, he's feeling sorry for himself and for realizing that like he didn't succeed on his own. I think he just realized like he really, really messed up. It's also in this moment that he realizes he hasn't hidden a lot of what he thinks he has from Aunt May that well. So in this moment for me, this is one of the few moments where he actually shows accountability, drops the superhero facade a little bit, and admits that his choices have made an emotional toll on May. So to me, it's like tender, it's human, it's meaningful, and really acknowledges that May has been kept in the dark about so much. So that's my fire apology. Maybe a little more standard than your approach to this category.
We didn't plan this here, but I have this one actually as a misfire. So we have this reversed somehow. For me, that was my number one misfire. This is kind of funny. And for me, it was a misfire because he's basically deflecting. He's excusing his bad behavior on his lost Stark internship. That's not an apology to me. He's just like, oh, these bad things happened to me, so now I'm doing bad things. That's not an apology in my eyes. Like, that's not really taking accountability. That's like, something bad happened to me, so now I'm acting out and doing things, sneaking out at night and all that kind of stuff. And May was really genuine with him, in that scene. She's like, just level with me, be honest with me. And then, of course, he starts lying about his fake internship. So to me, like, it's hard to have a number one apology when there's right up front, you're lying with your apology and deflecting. So,
I mean,
for me, misfire.
I hear you on the lie, but like, he is finally saying, I'm sorry to her. He really doesn't apologize any other point. So at least he's actually apologizing this moment. I don't know. I feel like this is going to be really difficult to come up with our top apology.
Yeah.
Because
definitely looking at two different ways. Yeah.
Clearly at odds here. So I'm going to propose we let the fans decide.
Ooh, okay.
So I think we should post on Instagram without our take on it. And you guys have to decide. You have to let us know.
Who's right and who's wrong?
Who's right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, that wraps up our apology audit. Up next, apologies that could have been, where we imagine the apologies that never happened and how an apology could have changed everything. So we've talked about the apologies that did happen in Spider-Man Homecoming, but what about the ones that never even showed up?
Welcome to Apologies That Could Have Been, aka the Super Sorryverse. Think of it as our own multiverse where apologies exist. This is where we dig into the missed moments, the unspoken regrets, and the emotional debts that were never paid.
Because let's be real, Peter Parker can lift a bus, but apparently not the emotional weight of saying, my bad.
In this segment, we each bring a few scenes that were screaming for an apology, the kind that could have made a real difference.
We'll talk through what could have been said, why it matters, and maybe even what it reminds us of in real life, if we're feeling brave.
Or maybe petty, depending on the day. So let's get into it. Who's your first Super Sorryverse pick?
I think probably my top one, the one that I would have liked to see, is Toombs, Vulture's apology to his daughter Liz. After he's arrested, Liz's life is devastated. We don't really see Toombs apologize, though he does protect Peter's identity in prison. So maybe this is a way of him sort of apologizing. But to me, it would have been nice to see a moment where it shows that he loves his daughter. I guess he sort of rationalizes his crimes that he's providing for the family. But it would have been nice to see an apology. It was I thought I was building a future for us, but I just wrecked the present or something. The reason why I would have liked to see this is because I think it would have been powerful for a teenage film. Parents apologizing to kids, saying as an adult.
Yeah.
Because this movie is so much about how Peter is screwing up all the time. He's a high schooler. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get how to be a superhero. He just doesn't understand how to be a friend. There's so many things he's messing up. But on the flip side of that, Toombs is being kind of an awful parent. And so if he would apologize to Liz, I think it kind of flips the script a little bit, on authority, and then shows accountability, and is also could be an example to Peter. Maybe not one he sees, but to me, that would be interesting. Because at the end of the day, Liz is the one that has to deal with all this collateral damage, more so in some ways than Peter. At the end of the film, he's almost rewarded for his actions, as opposed to Liz, who has her whole life devastated. To me, this would have been a really interesting moment and maybe some insight into Toombs, seeing an apology that would have given both of these characters just more emotional depth instead of her just being well, now I have to move away. And that was the end of it. And so it just felt, It just felt very truncated and odd to me.
Yeah, and not just move away. She's got to move to Oregon. But leaving her life in Queens, all her friends, all her future. I think she's a senior in high school, so maybe she's going away to college fairly soon. But yeah, her whole life has kind of changed. And like you said, it's a really big missed opportunity that I don't know if it's really in his DNA to apologize. He didn't really seem to be the apology type. Early on, he's punching people in the face.
Yeah, he's a dick. But I think seeing some of the films recently that we've been talking about in terms of apologies, they just felt like they had a little more depth with some of their characters compared to this one. Yeah. And so to me, I was kind of missing it. I just wanted to see that a little bit more. And here's a rich opportunity that I understand why the writers and filmmakers chose not to go that direction.
Yeah.
But as you look at the story, that just would have filled it out so much more.
Maybe you could help clarify me for this. There's a whole scene where Peter goes into the bodega. I think it's the first time he shows the bodega and orders his sandwich that he likes smushed with extra pickles. And there's a little fight over the $10 versus $5 price of his sandwich. Delmar says it's $10. And Peter's like, no, I'm not giving you $10. Here's $5, which is fine. But he also gets 2 bags of gummy worms. So this is where my mind, there's so much confusion. Is the sandwich that he's getting, the special deal, he's getting off the menu, a smushed sandwich with pickles and 2 gummy worm bags. The sandwich purchase for $5. I feel like $10 is probably the more appropriate price for that, at least in New York City in 2017, 2016, when this is taking place. So I don't know if he has some mind control over Delmar or what's going on, but $5, I feel like he first doesn't pay the price that he's told it is. Second of all, he's going to get an extra good deal because he's getting a couple of gummy bear bags there too. I don't know.
So you think he needs to apologize to Delmar for talking him down to $5?
Yes, I think he ripped off Delmar. And
I, too, noticed the 2 bags of gummy bears and them debating over the cost of the sandwich with no acknowledgement of the 2 bags of gummy bears on the counter. And then he leaves with the 2 bags of gummy bears and the sandwich.
What is your thoughts about the smushed sandwich? To me, it took a lot of reflection to try to think of what the purposes of this. And then you kind of brought up something I was thinking about, the time period. I think that was around the time period that panini sandwiches were kind of popular. Toasty sandwiches, like maybe that's what he's doing. They're smushing to be a panini sandwich. I know he has a conversation later on about the different sandwiches at different places. And Peter likes crusty bread sandwiches with a lot of bread. I'm trying to remember now what the line was.
I think he doesn't like them with a lot of bread.
Oh, okay, never mind. Then I guess that's wrong. But I think that was my guess is it's smushed because it's...
I got no idea.
Yeah.
I do like the extra pickles, but I have no idea about the smush. All right. I guess as I'm looking at my next apology that I would have liked to see, I'm seeing a theme that I didn't actually see it, which is adults apologizing to kids. Because to me, I really wanted to see Tony, Iron Man, apologize to Peter after the fire disaster. So to me, he's so upset with Peter because he's really just not taking responsibility for it. And Tony takes the suit back from him. He says, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. And he sort of hints at regret, like, I wanted you to be better.
Yeah.
But to me, I think he missed an opportunity to apologize, like to say, I'm sorry, I should have been clearer about the stakes. I threw you in too fast, and that's on me. Because he really expected him to show up and do certain things, like to come help the Avengers, not giving him a lot of context. The kids, I think they say 14 at a certain point, which seems too young. I think he's got to be a year or two older. But still, doesn't have probably the mental capacity yet to understand about how all this responsibility plays out, how it can impact people, how if he's not able to pull certain things off, like what the stakes are. And so to me, I would have liked to see this apology. Also, I don't think I see Peter apologize as much as I would have expected him to. But if you see somebody you admire or a leader apologizing, that's going to build trust. And then that's going to set an example for Peter to actually apologize when he's wrong, right? Yeah. And so I think to me, there are some just missed opportunities for actually true lessons about life and apologies in this film that just left me wanting a little bit more at times, and could have actually been true lessons to the audience to be yeah, Peter screwed up, but so did Iron Man. And so did Happy. I mean, Happy kind of just pushes him to the side constantly when Peter's actually asking for help and guidance, and they don't really give him any. And so then he does what he thinks he's supposed to do, but ultimately he doesn't do it well. And then there are consequences when he's really been asking for more information the whole time. So to me, I would have liked to see this just in terms of Peter's growth, because even with the rest of the film goes on, and I'm not sure he fully gets it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, in some of these Marvel movies, they might have felt a little forced, some of these apologies, but this is a high school set movie, a John Hughes-esque movie. This is supposed to be more of a learning to grow up and what that kind of looks like and what you should be doing, that it would feel more appropriate to have a little more of that happening from the adults to the characters in the movie. So I definitely agree. And I'll probably go one step further for you for my next one. All the parental figures in this movie really let Peter down, I think, in that. And maybe he needs an apology or some discussion with them or them with him about kind of enabling some of his behaviors or whatnot. And then I'll go down my list here of Tony, top of the list. Happy, you also mentioned. Aunt May, I think even the teachers at his school. We got the gym teacher, we got the shop teacher, not even like really giving much care to the students, to their well-being, their safety. You have the in-ear AI bot, Karen. And, I think even Ned himself is enabling him, being the man in the chair and whatnot, kind of not just, Tony and maybe Happy. I think almost all the adult figures really have missed opportunities to really help Peter growth. They see him, sneaking out, like as May says and whatnot, towards the end of the movie. But she never really lets it go for how long? Like, how long has it been Spider-Man at this point? And she's like really checked out, but like the teachers are. But, like I said, Happy's ghosting him on all his messages. And you see like hundreds of messages and not replying. Like, this is really not great parental figure behavior that I think they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree with that because, like, I've already named 2 parental figures who I wanted to apologize to the kids in the movie. But you put Ned in with this group. And so why did you put Ned in there? Because he's not a parent.
I think Ned was a little bit of an enabler there. The safety involved, the danger involved, but he's all for it and having fun doing it. And he's not really, I guess there's a few times where he kind of points out some of that stuff, but I don't think Ned was always the best friend for Peter's safety.
Sure. I guess though on the flip side, because this is actually one of the apologies that I would have liked to see is Peter apologizing to Ned for putting him in these situations. Like, and then letting him down. Like he kind of abandons him a few times. I mean, he does show up to save him at the Washington Monument elevator.
After giving him a bomb to carry around D.C.
Yeah, after giving him a bomb, right?
Yeah, I got you.
And like, I get that Peter is like, he's drowning in like this whole like double life chaos, but there's so many opportunities that he could have said to Ned, like, I keep letting you down and I'm sorry. Like, I don't want the Spider-Man stuff to cost our friendship. But even if the apology isn't in this film, in this moment, like it needs to happen at some point because your friends will forgive a lot, but at some point they won't, right? To me, that would have been something more than like giving Ned like the chair in the computer lab. He needed like a chair at the emotional table.
Very true. Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, those missed apologies could have really changed people's relationships by taking some accountability. For example, what would have a simple I'm sorry done to change the story?
And we should consider what makes a good apology. Things like ownership, empathy, and timing. Because in Spider-Man Homecoming, responsibility is everything.
Up next is Damage Diary, where we tally the fallout from Peter's first attempts at being a solo superhero.
Welcome to Damage Diary, the segment where we track what got destroyed, who got hurt, and who ends up paying the price when superheroes make bad decisions.
And Spider-Man Homecoming is interesting because the damage isn't world-ending. Nobody's dropping a city out of the sky.
Which honestly makes it feel more relatable because most of the damage happens in neighborhoods or schools or local businesses and the lives of ordinary people who I guess were not expecting alien weapons to show up on a Tuesday.
Yeah, with that being said, the damage I think is still a pretty big deal. I think we'll start us off here with Mr. Delmar's Deli. Peter stops the ATM robbery, but the Chitauri weapons get out of control and blow up part of the building.
The robbery gets stopped, but the neighborhood still loses a local business. Between structural damage, lost inventory, and rebuilding costs, we're probably looking at several $100,000 in damage, and that's before you get to the emotional impact. Mr. Delmar loses his livelihood. Residents lose a community gathering spot, and it's exactly the kind of damage that never makes a superhero highlight reel.
Then we've got the Washington Monument. Peter's classmates end up trapped inside a damaged elevator because one of Tomb's weapons makes it through airport security.
Thankfully, nobody dies, but dozens of teenagers come frighteningly close. That's trauma that's going to stick around for a lot longer than the repair bill.
Next comes our turning point, the Staten Island Ferry. It's major chaos and superhero blunders, and then the ferry gets sliced in half. And while Tony saves everyone, the damage is a lot. We're talking tens of millions in ferry repairs, emergency response costs, damaged vehicles, and cleanup operations.
And more importantly, hundreds of civilians nearly died commuting home from work. This is also the moment where things crash into reality for our superheroes. While Peter absolutely has made mistakes, Tony Stark is forced to confront the fact that he's been an absent mentor.
Which brings us to the final battle. Vulture hijacks a Stark cargo plane loaded with advanced technology and the whole thing comes crashing down near Coney Island.
Fortunately, most of the damage lands away from people, but you're still talking about a destroyed aircraft, damaged cargo, cleanup costs, and one very expensive evening for Stark Industries.
Adding everything together, my rough estimate puts the physical damage somewhere in the $50 to $100 million range, which is actually pretty low by MCU standards.
The emotional damage, though, that's another story. Peter loses confidence. Liz loses her relationship and discovers her dad is a supervillain. Toombs loses his freedom. And Tony gets a reminder that mentoring someone means more than handing them some high-tech equipment.
And a whole lot of ordinary New Yorkers end up cleaning up messes they didn't create. Because Damage Diary isn't just about broken buildings, it's about the people left dealing with the consequences.
So with that in mind, let's talk about the innocent bystanders caught in the middle of all of this. My first innocent bystander is one that's kind of a little out of left field, but I felt for the guy who was trying to sleep during the daytime. This is when Peter is trying to stop a car robber that looks like he's breaking into his own car, but then all this chaos ensues and the guy who's trying to sleep during the day opens his window and starts yelling at everyone. And I just felt for him, like he's trying to get his sleep in. Peter's not helping anything.
Yeah, I definitely can feel for him a little bit too. I've had a job before where I worked the graveyard shift, so I definitely can feel for this guy a little bit, trying to sleep during the day and all this chaos and noise is going on outside.
And it feels like Peter's spidey sense isn't formed yet or is just completely off in this situation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, yeah. For my first innocent bystander, it's probably also a little bit non-obvious choice, similar to yours, but mine's going to be Flash's dad. And this is about when Peter Parker takes Flash's dad's car, that's a little Audi TT convertible. I think it's by about $65,000, the cost of it when the movie came out. And Peter takes it from Flash, drives off, starts running over bicycles, turns it over, totals it on its side. And it's like, poor dad, he kind of gives his kid his fancy car for homecoming, and then, he gets totaled. That was a mistake.
I wonder how that conversation went with Flash and his dad.
Yeah, Flash, I think, seems to be a fan of Spider-Man. Not a big fan of Peter Parker, but he is of Spider-Man. So I feel like they've had conversations about Spider-Man. It's like, I got to beat Spider-Man, but he stole your car, and then I think it's totaled. Sorry, Dad.
Seems like a mess.
Yeah.
Well, what about all the chaos at the Washington Monument? One of the other innocent bystanders I noticed was the National Park employee. They're in the elevator with the students, and she's trying to keep the students under control when the elevator starts to fall a bit, and she's like, okay, guys, I know that's scary, but our safety systems are working. And she's like, we're very safe in here, but she looks scared. And I just really felt for her. I would be freaked out. Also, it was a nice little shout out to see some national park employees. I double checked it, and the Washington Monument is considered a national park. And so that's why they operate in the National Monument and the surrounding mall area. So fun fact.
Yeah. And I think it's probably a good example, maybe one of the few in this movie, of an adult handling the situation with kids in a proper fashion. Even though you could tell in their eyes that they're scared and things aren't going correctly, they're trying to keep the kids calm and keep everything under control and trying to be a good role model, what to do under pressure. It doesn't quite work out good, but I think they do a pretty good job there trying to handle that situation. Yeah.
Well, my last bit is I just want to note all the damage that Peter did when he's swinging and running through all the backyards. Kind of minor damage, but he knocks over what looks like a homemade tree house. Or the kids come out the next day and they're like, what happened to our tree house? Or just all the people who come out of their homes later and see the damage left behind. Not anything major, but still it would be perplexing for sure.
Yeah, definitely Spider-Man's causing some damage to that neighborhood as he's flying through. Like you said, he's damaging the tree houses. I think he also was knocking over sheds and fences and fireplaces and knocking tiles off of the roofs. He comes across some young kids, they're doing a little camping. They have a pop-up tent and they're having a little sleepover overnight in the backyard or whatever, and ends up scaring them half to death. And they might have a little bit therapy bill after all that. So yeah, lots of damage being done by Spider-Man in that Queens neighborhood.
Yeah, I wonder what happens to those kids as Spider-Man's story evolves. Are they going to be scared of Spider-Man when everyone else thinks he's a hero? Big question.
I think I'm feeling a little supervillain maybe coming down the road. These little girls.
Their origin story is being scared by Spider-Man in a pop-up tent.
Yeah. Guess we'll have to keep watching the movies to find out what's going to happen next.
Well, that's it for Damage Diary. A reminder that even when nobody is trying to cause harm, good intentions don't magically prevent consequences. Because this movie keeps asking the question, when someone makes a mistake, who owns the fallout? The person who causes the damage or the person who could have helped them do better? We share our thoughts up next in our biggest takeaway. Spider-Man Homecoming isn't really about becoming a superhero. It's about growing up. Peter wants more responsibility, more freedom, and more trust, but he hasn't figured out yet that those things come with consequences.
And the adults around him aren't exactly making it easy. Tony wants Peter to learn responsibility, but mostly from a distance. Happy barely pays attention, Aunt May doesn't realize what Peter is facing, and Toombs is setting an example of what happens when someone decides their circumstances justify their choices.
So what is Spider-Man Homecoming really trying to say about responsibility, accountability, and growing up? Which brings us to our biggest takeaway. Homecoming shows us that accountability isn't about whether you're young or old. It's about being willing to own the impact of your choices.
Peter spends most of the movie looking for someone to tell him he's ready. Tony's approval, Aunt May, Happy, anybody. But in the end, real growth happens when he starts taking responsibility for himself.
At the same time, this movie doesn't let adults completely off the hook. Peter makes mistakes, but mentorship isn't just handing someone responsibility and hoping they figure it out. It's being there for the failures too.
Growing up means learning from your mistakes, but helping someone grow means helping them learn from those mistakes instead of just punishing them for making them. And that's why the ferry scene matters so much. Peter fails, but the lesson isn't don't make mistakes. The lesson is learning what to do after you've made them.
And that's what Spider-Man Homecoming leaves us with. Not a perfect hero, not a perfect mentor, just people trying, failing, learning, and hopefully doing a little better the next time.
And that's it for Spider-Man Homecoming. Alien weapons, awkward school dances, and a teenager learning that being a hero is about a lot more than having superpowers.
So we'll leave you with this. When someone makes a mistake, what's more important, holding them accountable or helping them learn from it? And if you've ever been the person in charge, what responsibility do you have when the people you're guiding get it wrong?
If you're enjoying the show, follow us, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves superhero debates or someone who still thinks Tony Stark's mentoring strategy was completely reasonable.
And you can join the Super Sorry Club at supersorry.com. Next time on Super Sorry, we're heading into Thor Ragnarok. We've got space gladiators, sibling rivalry, and one very broken hammer. Until then, I'm Amber.
I'm Todd.
And we are Super Sorry. Super Sorry is written and hosted by Amber and Todd. Produced by a Super Sorry LLC. Music by Jam Studio. Special thanks to MCU Wiki, Wikipedia, and NYC Gov for serving as sources for Damage Diary. Your support helps us keep asking the hard questions and saying the hard apologies. Thanks for tuning in and sharing with friends. And if you're listening from New York, DC, or Del Mar's Deli, we are super sorry.
One last thing. Are you like me and feel a little bit bad for the Aaron Davis character, who's played by Donald Glover, when he gets his hand stuck to the back of the trunk of the car by Spider-Man's web, and he just went about his day getting groceries, getting ice cream, and now he has to wait 2 hours before that web dissolves. I don't think that ice cream's gonna make it.
Super Sorry is not affiliated with Sony Pictures, Columbia Pictures, Marvel Entertainment, Marvel Studios, the Walt Disney Company, or Disney+. As of this recording, all Marvel characters mentioned in this podcast are the property of the Walt Disney Company.